Next up is a panel discussion with a theme that we all are willing to fight and learn from: the world post-COVID-19, reimagining the future through purpose-driven inspiration. To moderate this session, we have Ms. Reetu Raina, CHRO, Quick Heal Technologies Limited. Reetu is a seasoned HR professional with over decades of experience. She has pioneered the concept of G-localized leadership. Her work on engaging Indian millennials has widely published. Joining her, we have Ms. Jasmine Gorimar, Group Technology, Digital Transformation and Group Engagement Lead, Mahindra Group. Jasmine has strategized and managed multiple international digital programs and distributed teams across the globe. She is highly experienced at mobilizing resources, both financial and people, as well as managing stakeholders. Our next speaker is Ms. Kavita Lakhani, Director, Operations, Weber Shandwick. Kavita is among India's most respected communication leaders with nearly 3 decades in PR and digital. She is known for her work positioning companies, CEOs, and senior management as leaders and change makers in the era of disruption and accelerated transformation. Joining them, we have Ms. Kanchana Krishnan, Senior Director and Head, Office Leasing Advisory and Retail, Chennai Head-Landlord, Representation JLL India. Kanchana is an experienced senior management professional with over 18 years of board-based hands-on experience across all asset classes of the real estate spectrum. She has been very successful from the early stages of her career in building teams, drive revenue growth, and making it profitable. Joining them is Ms. Madhumita Basu, Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer, Nuvoco Vistas Corp Limited. Madhumita brings wide experience in international, domestic, and rural markets over a 30-year career that includes extensive travel. She believes that a brand is a consumer experience and a clear 3-year strategy path is essential, with channel education and engagement and consistent communication. Last but not the least, we have Ms. Reema Kundnani, Board Advisor, Sell.do and Kylas. Reema is a business leader with a cross-functional experience in the real estate and technology industry across India, Asia Pacific, and MEA. Her forte lies in marketing, digital, branding, corporate communication, and sales, with a unique specialization in the luxury sales to ultra HNIs. Thank you. I now hand over to the moderator.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction and all your kind words. So we will start the discussion, and as we know that we will be focusing on repurposing and imagining the workplace post-COVID. Before I leverage on the experience of our eminent panel, I want to just start with a quote. The only lasting thing in the world is the change. Rest everything is, I would say, always temporary. And I think COVID has really, really hit us hard. And the worst part is when we are actually doing the panel today, it's in the worst shape or form in our country. But at the same time, if we look at these situations, whatever have come in, they have come in to do a reflection. And maybe what do we carry forward from this? And if you really look at whether countries, communities, or organizations, irrespective of the nature of business or context, they have reacted to it differently. And when you go deeper, what has really caused that reflection? It all boils down to 3 things, in my opinion. It's about the belief system of those organizations or countries or communities. It's about the leadership who was really to take the risk and stick to their belief systems. Automatically, there was a repurposing of business models which are happening. So today in this panel, I want to focus and ask the questions on these lasting things, which has, of course, I would say, Roger has given us a lot of pain, but at the same time, staying optimistic, how do we really move forward and reimagine the future for all of us? Without wasting much of time and leveraging on everyone's experience, I would like to start with my first question to Madhumita. How do you see adaptability emerging and helping corporates to navigate the world? Over to you, Madhumita.
Thanks, Reetu. Before plunging into into a response, I'll just do a little context setting. So we are in the business of cement, concrete, and building materials. We form a part of the construction industry, which contributes to 12% of the GDP. And the construction industry played a very important role in COVID wave 1 to pull the economy out of recession. So last year when COVID hit us, construction continued in some manner or the other. And here were we as an organization. Looking back, I would say ourselves, and as we observed other organizations, I'd like to put it in 3 buckets. We went from confusion to confrontation to consolidation. So first, when lockdown happened, there was confusion. Large organizations with operations across the country operate with SOPs, and we didn't have a standard operating practice for something like this pandemic. So initially, organizations' first thought was how to keep our employees safe, how to stay connected, and how to motivate the team. Because you have your people piece right, then you have an organization which will take the challenges in the outside world. From there, we moved to confrontation. We said, okay, 2 extended lockdowns, now we have to get down to the job of getting business. And we had to face the situation and adapt to the situation. What our organization did at a time like this is, we never thought a service engineer could give on-site construction advice on a video call. So suddenly, if we had service engineers all across the field helping customers, holding their hands, and lockdown brought them indoors. But our customers continued to build their homes. Our dealers in semi-urban and rural areas continued to supply cement. So our boys got onto video calls, and we learned a new way of giving advisory on-site services. We pushed full throttle a customer portal because we figured as cement sellers, we were coming late in the home building process. Whereas a consumer was spending a lot of time planning his home, budgeting for his home. So this gave us an opportunity to become a part of that process, offering him on our site free home plans. Again, another way of learning. From there, we moved to consolidation. When we started coming out of wave 1 of COVID, our concern was we shouldn't go right back to the brick and mortar days. So just elaborating on our customer service point, earlier our customer service used to manage 5 site visits because physically he had to travel, he had to be on site, meet customers. Today his target has got revisited to 5 on-site calls and 3 video calls. So emerging out of COVID, organizations started working with new models. But what we are seeing, Reetu, in this wave 2, very clearly, leadership cannot put their foot off the accelerator. We still have a lot of learning to do, a lot of reinventing to do, and 3 pillars. Keep pushing the needle on digitalization. Even if you are a brick and mortar company, how do you connect with influencers, customers, your channel? How to make the digital connectivity stronger? Second is innovation. You have to move from products to solutions. Pre-mixed products, precast, lend speed to the construction process. Think more and more customer out to company in. And thirdly, we will have to connect with customers and stay connected with our employees with a different level of empathy, physical as well as mental well-being is going to determine largely the way we organize internally as well as how we connect with the external world. So that is how I see this whole thing panning out, and still a long way to go, still a lot more learning, Reetu, for all of us.
Thanks, and I think it's really insightful when I'm hearing you, because yours is a very, very traditional industry. Adaptation and changing of models is not really easy for it. And I think one of the key things what really happened during this time, we were all learning. And when we were learning, we were actually getting really pressed from all the directions. You are learning, you are implementing, and you are executing at the same time. So, that was a kind of, I would say, huge for us to handle. And of course, personally, we were impacted because we were going through pandemic ourselves. So I want to ask, with that, the next question to Kanchana. We felt at one point in time, our productivity has increased because people had no barriers to work, right? And they were working 24/7. But eventually, after a few months, we felt people were getting burnt out. They had mental stresses. Now, when you look at this post-COVID, and I hope and pray we get over this soon, and post that, it will have a huge mental impact on the people. How do we see organizations, Kanchana, the role to play in repairing this impact which is created because of all this turmoil? Over to you, Kanchana.
Thanks, Reetu. I'm going to keep my answers very crisp, cognizant of time. Mental health has been the word that we've been speaking for the last 13 months. We are still into the pandemic, still in a bad patch. And I think uncertainty breeds anxiety. And I must say we are living at these uncertain times now. So I think there are a few things that organizations have been doing. Everybody last year, COVID took us by storm. Last year, our personal lives, our professional lives, everything has gone for a change. And change, as you said, is the only constant factor. There are certain best practices that we have been seeing as an organization, which we have implemented. And at large, we are seeing all large organizations implementing. For the most important thing to my mind, Reetu, is leadership and communication. That's extremely important. And I think you need to be extremely honest and communicate regularly. It's very, very important to stay connected. When I say connected, it doesn't mean WhatsApp, texting, etc. I think human beings are social animals, and we all have the need for a human connection. So I think staying connected, being honest with your employees on the communication. Everybody is living in uncertain times. Expressing what's happening within the organizations, what your managers can do to alleviate your anxiety, stress, plays a very, very large role. And today, most of the organizations have navigated. If you had asked me same time last year, I think most of us were very confused. But I think 13 months into the pandemic now, people and managers and corporate, to an extent, although the pandemic is changing and spreading rampantly, we know how to mitigate and how to navigate this. So I think the most important thing is leadership and communication. Staying connected is very important. Being empathetical towards employees is very, very, very key. I think you have to be very patient with team members who are struggling, and you need to support them at work by respecting their time boundaries. That's extremely important. It doesn't mean work from home means 24/7 we can work. I think keeping meetings to a minimum, being patient with so much of external noise around us, and large organizations, and not only large organizations, I think most of the organizations have come out with brilliant employee engagement programs, a variety of programs being launched. HR managers are playing a very, very pivotal role. For example, intranet pages where employees can connect. HR managers and HR heads come over, share tips to manage stress. how to manage remote working, how do we offer flexibility. And it's important to be a very, very inclusive leader. The impact of being an inclusive leader has gained a lot of momentum in the last 13 months. A lot of organizations that I've heard have modified policies and practices. They've changed the norms around working hours. They've reframed performance reviews, appraisal formats. Everything has changed. And I think a lot of emphasis has been given towards showing more empathy, being compassionate rather than being target oriented. I think the last but not the least, I think a lot of organizations are also trying to, mitigate the remote working burnout. Now, 13 months into working remotely, everybody is feeling stressed. I hail from a real estate industry, and it's a sure, as Madhumita just mentioned, it's a sure brick and mortar industry. So navigating and adopting became easier because we didn't have a choice to be adopted. But I think this remote working is creating a lot of burnout. So I think managers, there are a lot of company guidelines for working from home. There are designated working hours. There are scheduled breaks. And we encourage managers, to utilize flex time in order to help workers adjust their new and remote environment. I think communicating these guidelines, what your organization is doing, being supportive towards people, I think these are some of the large things that organizations have been doing. And I think we will continue to do. I think COVID is here to stay, at least for the next few quarters until we come out of this. I think these are some of the best practices that all organizations are using, and will continue to adopt new strategies.
Thanks a lot, Kanchana. And when I am looking at what Madhumita said and what you said, I think the clear threads is about digitalization, it's adaptation, right? Of course, there are things which were there existing. It's not that it's just suddenly popped up. But yeah, how much we were using it, because there was
adoption
no for us to use it. Now there's a push. Now, obviously, the context has changed. When the context changes, we have seen many businesses who have changed their business models. Some have changed even lines and segments. So with that, I want to ask next question to Reema. How do you think, Reema, that these new rules have actually redefined the purpose of the organizations? And how are they looking at creating that new model which they can adapt, looking at the digitalization, the policies, the processes? If you have any examples from your experience, which you can share, that would be really great. Over to you, Reema.
Thank you very much, Reetu and Madhumita and Kanchana. Very insightful points, and it's such an opportune time for all of us to be here. So, Reetu, in my experience, I'll just quote from what Madhumita said. Last year was the year of, nobody had a plan, if I was to put it in a simple perspective. This year, with technology and work, like Kanchana said, coupled with a layer of humanization, HR, focus on mental health, physical health, emotional health of employees, we've seen technology and work getting intertwined. I think what has happened, Reetu, and we've seen a lot of organizations rebadge and repurpose themselves in the last 1 year. From, a Mahindra auto using its technology and using its kitchens to serve food to people who need it during COVID, right from healthcare workers to staff who actually needs it, to a Louis Vuitton rebadging perfume making to sanitizers. So we've seen that rebadging happening. So what we've realized, and the essential point that I want to make is that, while these rules have rebadged and recreated adaptive things around the organization, I'm going to take a leap from what Madhumita and Kanchana said. I believe that only technology is not enough. Okay, the future or the new rule is going to be technology is going to be human with a balance of technology. because we've seen that. I mean, if you see LinkedIn today and you see what Borosil has actually put out, it's talking about what they're going to do for the 4 employees who unfortunately lost their life in this wave. And, you see, I saw a post today by Godrej Properties, which says that we are taking time off to heal. Our staff will not be available. There's a third case in point I saw with Tata Click, which says that, do you really need these products? Do you really need these products? We are actually taking, a step back and telling our teams to not focus on productivity. So I think what the new rule or the new organization is going to have to play out as policy, as culture, as the way forward, whether it's purpose or vision, is that what takes precedence? Is it commerce? And at some points it will be commerce, or is it community? And when I say community, it's the employee community at large, or it's the customer community, or it's the society at large. What's going to take precedence? Is it community or is it commerce? And that is going to be a channel that they're going to have to constantly juggle with. So I see that as being, the way forward in terms of the rules ahead. Or if commerce takes precedence, then okay, let's go back on the drawing board, see what we are in the business of, and start doing that best. If community takes precedence, then rebadge people, rebadge plants, rebadge technology, rebadge manufacturing, rebadge all the resources that you have from money, time, and people to give back, right? Whether it's to the organization intrinsically or to the community or the world at large. So, that's where I'm going to see, I personally believe I see emerging. So largely, to encapsulate, I think that the rules of the future are uniquely human and then powered by technology and powered by disruption and powered by the uncertainties that lie ahead of us.
Thanks a lot, Reema. And I think, this question was connected very well to what Madhumita's question in the beginning, which was about changing the business models. Of course, there are places where the models have changed drastically, but yes, there has been adaptations in the models the way she spoke. Now, one important thing is when we are adapting or changing ourselves, the key component for us to adapt or change is how do we as an organization learn and how do our people learn to make that change happen? Because if we will not do that, then we will not be able to successfully adapt and move forward. So I would like to ask next question to Jasmine. How do you see, Jasmine, that workplace is learning, which is a precursor for these new rules and adaptations? So over to you, Jasmine.
Thank you so much, Reetu. I must say, very deep, insightful observations by Madhumita, Reema, and Kanchana being shared. Whilst I do believe that the human centricity will play a major role, and there's no doubt about it, how digital intervenes itself into the human centricity space is going to be extremely key in the upcoming years. And user experience, employee experience has never been more important. And the past 1.5 years has totally established that. People who would still write checks are now doing financial transactions online. People who would pay on delivery, pay cash on delivery for the Amazon box and services are today transacting online to avoid the cash transaction. So how digital plays a role in human centricity is what I want to also invariably address using, let's say, learning and development. Let's tie it down back to employee experience, digital workplace experience. Why would any human or any person want to learn and develop? Is it because he's passionate about a topic? Okay, maybe. But because he or she wants a career or an opportunity to grow within that area, right? That's the end result of all learning and development. Otherwise, nobody would typically want to learn except, pick up the news and just read it. It'll tell you enough anyways, right? So let's take a step back. What most systems and core HR systems don't do currently is capture the skills of the employee, not only from past experiences, but also what are they currently learning and developing in? What are their future aspirations? What does the organization expect them to deliver? Do they have those skills? Even within having a skill, for example, let's take something as simple as project management, right? It's kind of an outdated skill. Nobody wants project managers, right? We want to have product managers. We want to have UX managers, user experience managers, whether it's for employee experience or your customer experience. We want those skills in place, right? Where do you stand within those skills? Are you a beginner, you an intermediary skilled, or are you an expert in that area? So there's further classification happening within that space. And another very wrong perception that most companies have is, hey, this is the pandemic, everyone's working from home, let's bombard them. It's a good opportunity to bombard them with more learning, more digital learning. Absolutely wrong. What has changed? People's need to be skilled digitally has changed. What has changed? The physical trainings that used to happen, they've moved on to digital, right? An ideal example is just this conversation that I'm having with you. It would have been a forum in a hotel or somewhere else in a normal scenario, but now we're doing this digitally. So the pandemic has actually forced us to rethink the way we do things digitally, right? So we need to understand that coming back to learning and development, unless we tie down our past skills, our past experiences, down to our performance of the employee, and hence determine what the employee needs to learn and develop on a periodic basis, and link that to outcomes saying future promotions or growth or future mobility across the organization, your whole talent management cycle is not complete. So this is not just a topic of learning and development, in my perspective. If you're looking at it from an employee, a human-centric point of view, let's take a step back. Let's not look at it as just digital learning and bombarding people with mandatory courses. That's not right. It's wrong. We should be looking at it from an end-to-end. Actually, a lot of organizations should be looking at it end-to-end. A lot of HRMS solutions or human resource management solutions like SuccessFactors, Darwinbox, and all need to look at it from a different perspective, end-to-end talent management perspective. And of course, needless to say, organizations need to have those capabilities, digital capabilities, to be able to run, motivate, and drive people end-to-end across the talent management cycle. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Jasmine. It was very, very insightful. And I think the key takeaway I took, it's not a touch at the skin. It's not a knee jerk. It's much more deeper. And, if it is deeper, then only it will sustain, and then only it will help us to move forward. Otherwise, pandemic is over. We are back to normal life, normal courses, blah, blah, blah. And we have seen that happening in Jan, Feb, and March, right? Not December, Jan, and Feb. People had started coming back to normal lives. They had started having a, I would say, scattered plan of coming to offices. Again, we never knew what is in store, and we are back to square one. I would say not square one, -1. Now, the important thing is that how do we take this situation for a reflection and reimagining the future? Now, that actually, when you said that taking it much more deeper, I want to move my next question to Kavita, that these changes or these adaptations, they brought positive things, they brought negative things. But what do you think, Kavita, in your mind, what are the positive changes which we as organizations, communities, or countries should think that they were not here for touch and go? They gave us some learning or a meaning which we need to take deeper. So over to you, Kavita, on the positive changes or adaptations which we should continue as we move forward in this next arena.
Reetu, I never imagined that I would see something positive, considering all the doom and gloom that's right now around us, But interestingly, there are positives, And I would say one of the good things that has actually, really the good thing that has emerged from COVID is that it has accelerated the pace of innovation. I think we all agree there because, innovation by itself, if you look at it, it requires a risk appetite, a willingness to change, and a mindset to change, a mindset to take risks, And this incident or this happening in our life has come out of the blue, and it has made everybody a risk taker. No company has been, spared of actually this opportunity to take a risk because they were forced into it. It was a simple thing. And everyone has had to turn this disruption into a business opportunity. Otherwise, they ran the risk of actually dying. So most businesses have, they didn't have a choice. They needed to rise to the occasion. And I'd just like to cite some examples that all of us are actually experiencing around us, So for example, a very good example of product innovation or product development, I would say, innovation in product development is within the pharma industry. All of us have either taken a vaccine or are all set to take a vaccine. But do you know that the actual development time of a vaccine is nearly 10 years? 10 years. Only in this COVID period has it so happened that they have accelerated. The industry has gone into a pace of hyper innovation. And I think there's been experimentation in therapy development, clinical trials, while ensuring that there's no compromise on, efficacy, accuracy, and patient safety, which is the most important, Now, if I were to go towards, product distribution or something that, Madhumita talked about a little earlier on in the discussion, So companies that were brick and mortar, or were very heavily leveraged in a physical retail distribution model. Now, they didn't have a choice either. They've had to experiment and move into a hybrid e-com model or a physical and an e-com model, so a digital model. And once again, because they didn't have a choice, this was the only way they could connect with their customers, because of the social distancing norms and the fact that also in some cases, we were so used to buying products, at the retail stores, but we couldn't go out and buy anything. So now we, like how Jasmine was saying, I'm a classic, I would go and use cash to buy things at the shop. But now I'm actually ordering things online and rather happily. I have an 80-year-old mother who is very now conversant on, Amazon and bigbasket.com. So, our lives have changed, they've completely changed, And then Kanchana and I think Reema touched a lot on, how talent management or human centricity has kind of really come, it's taken center stage, We used to all think that, or rather global organizations used to think that work from home and, all that would lead to a loss in productivity, loss in motivation. Just look at all of us. We are all working from home for the last, 13 months, And I think the good part is that all of this is here to stay. And it's going to hugely benefit a section of society. Women or caregivers or people from smaller towns, who could not actually have the opportunity, because a lot of organizations are considering a hybrid model, and that's really fantastic, So I would think all these are the positives, and a lot of the others, technology and all. Jasmine is the expert there, so I'm not even going to go in that direction. But so many good things have also emerged in this period, So I think it's a win-win for all, and we will come out much better out of all of this.
Absolutely. So thanks a lot, Kavita. And it's on purpose that we want to think about what is positive which has happened, because as a human species and as communities or countries, if we have to move forward, what is important is that we don't freeze. If we don't have to freeze, we have to be hopeful and we have to move. And to create that hope, we have to also think, it's like a lab or a simulation for us. Unfortunately, not a great simulation, not a great lab. But at the same time, it's, adversities have always brought best in humanity. So how do we look at that best and move forward? Thanks a lot, Kavita. This is a common question which I want to pose to the entire panel. And which is like, whether I talk about adaptation of the new models, whether I talk about learnings, whether we talk about new rules, how did it impact productivity, stress, and all that. If I have to really summarize the bottom line, many things have got disrupted, especially when I say business models and engagement. For example, you said that engagement, which was face-to-face, it was no more existing, right? So the business model where you had to have physically people in the office, sit on the computers, and a manager would oversee them, it was no more existing. So it was a disruption of a business model. It was a disruption of an engagement model. Now, just with one point, if each one of you, and I'll leave it to you all who wants to speak first, one lasting impact which you think this disruption has brought, which will continue without any push, because we as humans, we are creatures of habit, right? So when things change, we back to our normal self, right? So what is that one lasting thing which will still continue post-pandemic? So I leave it open. Anyone can start with and then move on to the other person.
May I take this one first?
Sure.
This is fastest finger first, so I make the most of it. So, I'm going to just simply say that, COVID has pushed companies over the technology tipping point, and this has transformed businesses forever. So while customer centricity, human centricity was always there, but I think right now the way we engage with the external world, or we engage within our, I would say, with anything that we do, is very, very technology driven. It's going to take, it's come into being in the last 13 months, like it's hyper accelerated. That's the only way to describe it. And in fact, there was this McKinsey survey done, and I'll be happy to post the link. It was done with senior executives worldwide, including India. And what they felt is that, normally whatever digitization would have happened, COVID is accelerated by 3 to 4 years. And if you were to look at delivery of products and services and all, they would have normally taken 10 years, the digitization process. Now, various geographies would have gone faster or slower, but this has been accelerated by 10 plus years. Now, for me, that is big. There is no other way of describing it. And the good part is that this disruption is here to stay. It's not going away. And it's a good thing for everybody, So like if what Madhumita was saying earlier on, if her industry can move digital and actually start doing the customer interface through technology, I think that is big, because she's representing a brick and mortar, a traditional business, a traditional industry. So if she validates exactly what I was thinking about. So yeah.
Thanks a lot, Kavita, for that. And I think, Jasmine is going to be the most important person. Jasmine.
Okay. So I see two ends of a spectrum, right? What will not change? I think the basic human need, and I'm sure we are all well-to-do and affluent in that space, but the basic human need for food, clothing, and shelter has never been more important.
Yeah.
Right? And you see news out there. This goes beyond what technology will solve. This is something at a policy level that needs to be addressed. It's never been more important, right? And the other end of the spectrum, which is what technology actually influences and disrupts, right? We need to understand that even when we do come out of the pandemic, if we ever do come out of the pandemic, we're not going to go back to the normal that we were in the past. There's a new normal. There's a new definition to that new normal, which no matter what we do and debate right now, we won't be able to accurately define that new normal. We need to go with the flow. We need to make the best. We need to make the right policies and decisions at a very humane level. If you're talking about humane, the human touch, technology can solve, ease, expedite, resolve as much as possible, but it's still dependent on the policies that the masses have nominated leaders to create. And I think that is where that's the other end of the whole spectrum, which will never change. Policy making and decisions.
Absolutely. I think thanks a lot. I would say, Jasmine, because coming from you, who is actually doing a digital transformation, I think, design thinking is becoming more than ever, I would say, the need. It's the persona, it's the customer, it's the human being at the center of it. It's not a machine talking to a machine. And that will for sure stay, and that will define the things we move forward. Yeah. So thanks a lot. So Madhumita, what is the one lasting thing which you think would continue? Over to you.
Ritu, some very relevant point by Kavita and Jasmine on technology. I'd just like to bring a slightly different aspect, complementing, not supplementing. I think COVID has made organizations more ESG focused. Environmental, social, and governance goals is another area which is going to see deep purposing. We will need purpose as a compass for an organization to navigate COVID-like situations in the future.
Absolutely.
So that I see is another very important change that's going to get embedded by this.
I completely agree with you, because it has made us think in the directions which we might have neglected for years. Suddenly, when we are in this situation, we started realizing what could be the possible causes, and causes are many. And I'm sure, in the first wave, we saw nature breathing. The simple reason was that we had overloaded, we had exhausted it. And if we have to sustain as a humanity, as a race, we can't afford to let it go. Thanks a lot, Madhumita. Anyone else who wants to have a comment on the lasting impact or the things which will continue with COVID?
So, Reetu, I'll just add to what Jasmine, Kavita, and Madhumita said. Purpose will include human, technology, sustainability, all of that is lifelong goals. I think at a deeper level, whether it is personal, whether it is organizational, it's individual or groups, I think what COVID has taught us is that we cannot be complacent. We can't take anything that we have for granted. And that is true both at an individual level, whether it is our homes and, the need for food, shelter, safety, having domestic staff come in and actually help us with our work, or as organizations that, we are above it and COVID's not going to hit us, right? So I think that, the need that you cannot stay complacent anymore has actually driven innovation, has driven change, has driven adaptive models. So I think that need to stay complacent and take anything for granted is going to be a permanent change, which will drive innovation both at home and at an organization level and at the society at large. So.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, Reema.
Ritu, I'll add a final point to summarize everyone's thought here. I think with COVID, everything has changed. Only difference is that the degree of change varies. Certain businesses change differently, certain businesses completely change for good, and certain businesses have vanished, and certain businesses are going through a transformation. Personally, I think all of them have spoken from a business and an organizational perspective. I have a 15-year-old daughter. Education has changed completely. 13 months, education has, COVID has taken this by storm. It has resulted globally, over 1.3 billion children are out of classroom today. That's the recent statistics. And as a result, I think education has changed dramatically. Distinctive rise of e-learning, whereby obviously everybody is doing remote learning, digital platforms. Is it good, bad, ugly? That's step 2. But this is completely transformed. And I think I must say, even before COVID, I think high growth and adoption on educational technology did exist. And I think there was already investments were accelerating. I think a recent data which suggested EdTech investments were during 2019 was at 19 billion USD. And today, as we speak, by 2025, a recent data suggests that the overall market share for online education will touch about $350 billion. And this is mind-boggling. I can't even put a mind to think what kind of change is that. So I think as adults, when we are transforming and navigating and adjusting, children are adjusting. There are a lot of difficulties, there are a lot of challenges that we are facing, but I think overall education will take a hybrid model, which is, in my opinion, is going to be a very lasting change in future generation.
Thanks a lot, Kanchana, for your points. Absolutely, we are all seeing, we have kids and we have seen how the education is changing around us. And, I would like to just give a summary of what all we have spoken, because that would help participants to take concrete takeaways from this discussion. And when, I was just making my notes, what all you were speaking, I think before I get into the summary of the discussion, I think it's a crisis. And crisis asks for a response. And response is for survival. And survival asks for adoption. Because if I don't adapt, I will vanish. I think that's what most of us have, experienced. But looking at the plus points of that adaptation, it has been digitalization, it has been learning, it has been customer centricity. Again, digitalization with human centricity. It has been not touch and go deeper. It's not about wishy-washy stuff. And I think more than anything else, it's a major correction. When I look at things, when Madhumita spoke about the environment, the societies, the government, you spoke about education, Jasmine spoke about digitalization and deeper learning, Kavita spoke about customer and human centricity, and Reema spoke about how things are changing the business models. All this is a correction. And correction can happen only if I reflect. And unfortunately, in crisis, our ability to reflect becomes lesser because we want to survive, we want to live and continue living. At the same time, as leaders, people who take courage to take a pause, isolate and reflect and take next step, they become really, really successful. And that is the role which we have in our organizations, in our communities, just to take a pause, reflect and move forward so that any such disaster unfortunately ever comes, we are more prepared for it. Thank you all, lovely ladies. I really enjoyed this conversation. I would say these topics are, I would say, a breath of fresh air in whatever we are handling otherwise. I wish you all good luck. Stay safe. And I'm sure, in case there are any questions which can be later posted by Forum or Harish, we would be more than happy to take that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Reetu.
Thank you. Thanks, Reetu.
Bye.
Thank you, Reema, Madhumita, Kanchana, Kavita, Jasmine, and our esteemed moderator, Reetu. Thank you for those insights. It has been really, really a good talk.